Hi, everybody. Welcome to Watches with Dennis here with a Saturday live stream. Going to kind of bifurcate this one. We're going to talk a little bit about the Morgan Stanley report follow-up because Swatch Group has actually published an open letter regarding that. So I thought it'd be a good little segue based off of our last conversation set. And then also kind of back to the more traditional format that I tend to do on these. I have 3 new releases that I want to go ahead and spend some time with you all on. One from MeisterSinger, one from Tutima, and one from Ressence. So I think we're kind of going up the price points on each of those. I don't know. The MeisterSinger is more expensive than I would have thought when I first read about it. But anyway, that will go ahead and be the flow and format for today's live stream. Housekeeping items, review for the Parmigiani Tonda. I recorded it this morning. I have not edited it yet. I just got all the video downloaded off of the camera, and then I need to prep for this. So that will probably be done this weekend, most likely. But you know, it kind of depends on when I actually get around to editing it. So on the wrist today is actually a Seiko. This is an older Seiko model. I should probably tell you the exact model. I'm not remembering it right now, so I'm going to peek real quick at my list of watches that I own because I can never keep these references straight when it comes to the Seikos. I do pretty good with my anniversary Seiko because it's real short. It's the SRPK 17, but this is the 7N439070. So a little bit of a story about this watch. So this used to be my dad's watch, and he gave it to me a couple of years ago, I think, maybe a little over a year ago. And anyway, so I got this out. I was going to wear this yesterday, not for the live stream today. And the second hand was jumping every 2 seconds. So I knew the battery was low. So I was like, I think I got plenty of these batteries still. I bought batteries years ago. I did a whole bunch of battery swaps on watches. And so I thought I'll just change the battery out. And sure enough, I did have a little pack of them. So I pop one of those out, take the case back off this watch, pull the old battery out, put the new battery in. And as I'm seating the new battery, the dial on this watch rests against the edge of the bezel, but this bezel is just a friction fit. And while I pressed it on really hard with a press, it actually doesn't go on all that hard, as it turns out. So because I was not pushing the dial, the sapphire and the bezel down, I wasn't like holding it down when I pushed the battery in. I actually pushed with enough force that on the movement to get the battery seated, that it pushed the bezel out of the watch. Now you're probably like, okay, well, the bezel fell out of the watch. Wouldn't you just press it back on? Yeah, sure. That was easy. The problem was the stem snapped on the crown because the crown was still in the case. And it wasn't much pressure, but that stem is not thick. And it snapped right at the crown. So the crown fell off, the the bezel fell off, the dial fell out, and then icing on the cake, the battery was dead. The new battery. The old battery I could put back in and it would go back to the every 2 seconds ticking low power. But the new battery, it's an older battery, so it was not functional. So it was all a waste. So anyway, I took the watch on. Actually, I guess I was going to wear it Thursday. So I took the watch to my local watchmaker that I've had work on some of my older watches anyway. And so $100 later, I think this might be the same crown. He didn't tell me. He thought he was not going to be able to get the stem out of the old crown. And I'm like, if he's got the same style crown, it's not a big deal to me. They made a bazillion of these watches. And I went ahead and let him, gave him the $15 for the battery. Because I'm like, well, I'd have to order otherwise. So just put the battery in while you're at it. I didn't keep the old battery in. He's like, so you need the battery changed too? I'm like, in this case, yeah. He's like, all right, well, I'll let you know if I can't get the stem and the movement all back together. I was like, I put it back together except for the crown. So I was pretty confident that all I needed was a new stem and maybe a new crown. But I think he actually got the old crown stem dethreaded from it because it scratched up like the old one. When he gave it back to me, I said, it looks pretty good. And he just said it should. And I thought maybe that meant he used all the parts. So anyway, that's my story. It's always a little bit, I'm not a watchmaker, but I'm always a little sad, just a little, if I have to go to them because I tried to do something myself. If it's something I didn't try at all, I totally get it. Like when I took my Gruen Precision into, well, I did try and regulate it, but I thought it looked like it needed a service, and it did. But my Spiro Agnew watch, I took and completely disassembled that movement and put it back together, and I could only get it to run intermittently. So I had to go to a watchmaker. But I mean, that's what their training's for. But sometimes I'm still like, you know what? I wish it was like changing oil in a car. I should be able to do it, guys. I should be able to do it, but I just couldn't get there. But in this instance, I must have changed 24 batteries in watches. I have never had the bezel come out and damaged a watch changing a battery ever. Just anyway, first time for everything, I guess. So let me get caught up with the chat, and then we will get underway with our topics. Matthew, welcome to the live stream, says, Swatch basically said Morgan Stanley doesn't have access to true numbers and called their information inaccurate. That was my takeaway, at least. You are succinctly summarizing what will be the first topic. Yes, that is my basic interpretation. But we got to milk it for, come on, it's a live stream. We got to milk it for a little more than that. So milk away we will. Rob, thank you for being a 99 Club member. I do appreciate it. Good morning, Dennis. I'm ready. 2XL on beef stick in hand. So don't give us any garbage. These are pinball references that most of this audience will not understand. However, I am glad that you have an appropriately proper pinball sized t-shirt. 2XL, the official sizing of pinball. I'm not sure how to say this handle. Lamentate. I'll just call you Lom. Lom. Welcome, Lom. Greetings from Australia. Well, greetings back from Kansas in the USA. Underachieving watch collector. The Parm Rapper's watch. Yes, apparently it has become a rapper's watch. I did not realize this. I never thought anything could really displace Audemars Piguet in the realm of rap, but baby steps for every company. And if Parmigiani can do it, other brands that don't sound like cheeses can do it too. Lom continues, Swatch called out Morgan Stanley for the figures on Hamilton and Mito, which always struck me as odd. Who is buying a Mito for 2,000 Swiss francs? The figure Swatch offered 969 Swiss francs makes complete sense. Yes. So let's go ahead and segue into that, because that is also correct in terms of the nature of the call outs, so to speak. So here you go. I do have links in the video description, as I generally do, to these articles, so you can go and read them to your heart's content. But anyway, this one is from Hodinkee. And yes, so Swatch Group published this open letter about calling out Morgan Stanley on a few of their brands and the inaccuracies there. And some of them, as Lam has mentioned in particular, when you look at the data, it does call things into question. And there were some of you who commented on my pre-recorded video or on my live stream who talked a little bit about the estimating nature of Morgan Stanley. The letter really focused a lot on what I think is probably the most obvious to many people who dove into that side of it. While I didn't spend a whole lot of time, especially any time, on the affordable end of the brands on the list. I mostly spent my time talking about the higher end stuff, like the top 5 brands in terms of turnover. When you started going to the lower brands, there were a lot of there was discussion from people going, well, let's, like, this average retail price that was being listed on some of these brands was very, very high. So like the Swatch, regular Swatch, I looked at theirs and I didn't think anything of it. I think it was like $120 some or Swiss francs, which, when you factor in all the moon swatches and stuff, felt like it was probably relatively realistic. However, I didn't look at Mito at all, or in terms of average price. And so this letter that is summarized by Hodinkee goes into a lot of that. Now, interesting, there are a few things that are interesting. One is, while Swatch Group pushed on Tissot, they pushed on Mito, they did not correct, I didn't feel, they corrected the record or provided anything meaningful to explain Omega away. So again, the answer to the long and short of it is, if companies really don't like this report and feel it's inaccurate, and I think there's plenty in there to criticize and claim that it's inaccurate and that the methodologies, I'm not even going to accuse, there are comments on this article that basically accuse the consultant of shenanigans, driven by the fact that the consultant involved in the writing of the report also is a consultant to the watch industry. And I'm not saying that is or isn't true. I have no idea. But even if you set any accusations like that aside, you can have methodologies that, depending on the brand, start to fall apart more versus other brands. Swatch, as a publicly traded company, even if they were a privately traded company, they could choose to release their numbers, and they still don't do it. And so they can make their own bed here and put it in their financial reports and show you the success and failure by brand. I will tell you, once upon a time, I asked them for this, Swatch specifically. I wrote to Swatch Group after I read their financials, because I used to go through the financials, but you thought the Morgan Stanley report could be frustrating. The financials can be frustrating too. And I said I wanted to know the details by brand, and they replied back right away and said we don't give that information out. Like, that's not available to shareholders, it's not available to you. We do not. We talk about profitability as a group, but we do not do it by brand. So outside of they give you some taste, because in the narrative of the financial report, they will talk about each brand. So you'll get a sense like, oh yeah, the PRX is doing pretty well. Or we saw we saw Moonwatch Professionals doing better after the Moon Swatch drop. Like they have some of that, but then there's others like Glasuta Original where you don't get a feel for much of anything. At least like the year I read, I was like, I don't know if they're doing good or not. I assume no, because they're not really talking about anything noteworthy, but again, that's an assumption. It's all an assumption. So anyway, it's interesting. So is it a bold move, Cotton, for Swatch Group to basically call out the methodology? I don't know. They had some good pushback, and some of you guys had examples of this in terms of what Swatch went ahead. Like here in the Hodinkee article, it notes that they didn't really talk about Omega in their letter, but they claim that Longines actually had a profit, a sizable profit actually, in 2025, whereas Morgan Stanley's report had said that they lost money. So that's a pretty big pushback. And again, assuming that Swatch's data that they shared in the open letter is accurate, that's a pretty big disparity. They also put in some noteworthiness, saying that Tissot actually grew very, very minorly, but Morgan Stanley had suggested they had slightly fallen in terms of sales growth. And then Hamilton, there was also some discussion here, you can see as I've highlighted, in terms of Hamilton and Mito. Mito's also in that highlighted section. So some pretty significant pushback. Ultimately, as I've noted before, Morgan Stanley, I mean, there was another report that came out like a couple of weeks or a week before Morgan Stanley, which I didn't spend much time with. We just don't have a lot that we as enthusiasts can rely on, because even the publicly traded companies, because they're generally owned by conglomerates, LVMH, Richemont, and Swatch Group are the biggies. And if you even want to go over into Japan and say Seiko, we just don't. If they're not going to break it down by brand for us, the best we can do is rely on people that give us estimates. But of course, it's good to know that those estimates might be dramatically inaccurate. So I don't know. It's interesting. So let me go ahead and get caught here with the chat and what you guys all are saying. Fort, welcome to the live stream. Fort's actually someone who has criticized the Morgan Stanley approach in several comments on the prior video. So if you want to go and read some other perspective about that, or go deeper into maybe what the issues are with how that kind of the methodology is, or what he's been able to ascertain of the methodology, you can always go back and read those. Donter says, I completely disqualify Parmigiani from consideration because of the name. Totally understand. I actually struggled quite a bit with that initially as well. However, it has ended up being my favorite Swiss watch brand. So it's not my favorite cheese, but maybe I could get there at some point. I don't know. Kevin, good morning. Hope things are going well for you. Donter says, Zen is another one where the name is very detracting for me, saved by the fact that it's pronounced Zen. Yeah, and of course, lay people will probably call it Sin, but it's the same thing. It's like Zenith. I grew up in an era where there was a brand in the US called Zenith that sold televisions. And I think Zenith at one point had distribution rights to Zenith. I think I read something. Again, this is way back. I was a kid. I don't know. But I've seen some pieces about that sort of thing. So it's been one where, you have to teach yourself. Like I have to try and remember, am I supposed to say Glasuta Original? I don't think so. But I bounce between Original, Original. I guess I'm just trying to make it sound European. So I don't know. As long as I don't say original, I think I've done it. But maybe I should just focus on trying to say Glasuta, and I try and say it the right way, but I have no idea if I am at this point. It's like Patek. Is it Patek? I still hear a lot of people say Patek. I'm not sure it's Patek. I don't know. I went once and looked at the French pronunciation. So anyway, it's just one of those. You will spiral very hard. I just have someone who come in the comments a lot and really judge every single pronunciation I've done, except I don't think he ever criticized me saying Timex, but otherwise pretty hard on my pronunciations, which could be fair. Fort says, I think there must be some benefit why the companies don't push back. I assume the benefit is they do. The only way to push back is to reveal your numbers. Like, what can you fight? How do you fight misinformation with information? They don't want their numbers known. And I think that's more important to them than a report that's wrong. I think in many instances, they could always just say that report isn't accurate. They have no idea what our numbers are. Their estimates are wildly off. You could counter and say, prove it. And then maybe they shrug and go, it is not worth our time to prove it. I think what would be more accurate is they don't want their rivals to know exactly how their businesses are going. I spent my entire professional career in nonprofit and public sector spaces. So to me, that's very weird because I've operated in environments where you were subject to open records laws and stuff. Like the public gets to know your pay. The public gets to know basically any final decision. So to me, it's always been weird. But again, it's not a for-profit business environment. And in the for-profit business environment, their numbers are seen as proprietary and they really want to shield them. So that's where you've seen, I think here, Swatch Group has given some drip feeding on some counterpoints to say, hey, no, we're telling you with these, I hesitate to say this because I don't think Tissot and Longines are really lesser important brands to them. Maybe Mito is, but trying to point to some of their lower brands and say, you're wrong in terms of the dollar amounts. But they still stayed quiet about Omega, which is either telling or they just felt that one was too important to reveal numbers on. Fort continues, and Lux Consult response was to have Morgan Stanley lawyers sue Swatch. Not a good response. I don't know. I didn't know about the lawsuit. I don't know where they filed suit. In the U.S., here's where it could be. It may not look good publicly. Here's how it could be a good response. In U.S. litigation, I'm not a lawyer. Nothing I'm saying is to be considered as legal advice. Let me put that qualifier. My understanding is in U.S. law, if a lawsuit starts up because of a conflict, in discovery, Morgan Stanley would be able to get the real numbers as part of the lawsuit. So Swatch, again, as I understand U.S. law, if it happened in the U.S., could be compelled to have to, in discovery, prove that the report is wrong by revealing what their real numbers are. And then the court record would be public, and then the numbers would be out there. And so sometimes when you see people threaten to, in the U.S., when you hear people threaten to sue over something, sometimes people will say, bring it on. The discovery will crush them. They will not, this is not a fight they really want. So usually it's the one suing, though, that you think doesn't want to be exposed by discovery. Because the counter would work as well. Swatch would be able to, in theory, get through discovery what the methodology is behind Morgan Stanley's report. And maybe they don't want that known. But I don't know. We're reading way more. Ask a lawyer to figure. And again, I don't know which. I imagine this did not happen in U.S. courts. And I don't know how different. Every country has got its own rules. So Lam says, by only giving concrete figures for a few brands, Swatch were being strategic. It was just enough information to cause doubt. Sure, but a lot of people already had doubt in their minds. Fort says, that's strange about Longines' profit. Overall, Swatch only made $25 million on $6 billion in turnover, or Swiss francs, I should say, in turnover. Fort says, Cartier only reports its whole number, not split between jewelry and watches. Again, this is very common for businesses not to split them out. And Fort says, Zenith Electronics bought Zenith watches. They are the ones that made them destroy mechanical tools. Shocky face gasp. I did not know they were the ones. They were the ones. But then the one guy whose name I don't remember broke all the rules and he squirreled away all the technology. And now we get to have Zenith El Primeros once again, and the world is right. Except Zenith charges too much retail for the watches, so nobody buys them firsthand because they're too expensive. But other than that, it was great. It was absolutely great. Luce de John, welcome, by the way. If they want to settle the matter definitely, then show us the numbers. Otherwise, any response will look weak, in my opinion. It is a perspective that some may walk away from. Swatch is trying to, I think, ride the middle road here with giving you some of the numbers, but not obviously the big ones. These were all brands that are on the lower half of their own internal pyramid, not in terms of sales, but just in terms of their pyramid of prestige. And then Lam says to Fort, there's a clear separation between jewelry and watches and media reports. The watches are 3.5 to 4 billion in revenue. The rest is jewelry. Okay. So I want to move on from Morgan Stanley. As fun as it is, to go ahead and actually talk about a few new watch releases, because there were some, and it's been about 3 weeks since I actually talked about new releases on the live stream. Live stream doesn't exist to talk about new releases, but it is fairly low effort content that people can rally behind. We like talking about new stuff. That's the idea. So let's go ahead and jump into the first one. I have not discussed this brand in a while. Again, links in the video description. So this is an article with a blog to watch on the new MeisterSinger Panthero jumping hour. So MeisterSinger, well known for single-handed time-telling watches. They don't just do single-handed time-telling watches. And in fact, this is not their first jump hour. I do think the configuration is different now. The jump hour that, if I'm remembering right, and it's been a few years, but I remember looking at some when I first kind of got into collecting. They had one that looked fairly similar dial configuration in terms of the jumping up at the 12, except they then had a full, almost like chapter ring style traditional minute hand. So you'd have the jump hour and then the minute hand. I don't remember if they did anything with seconds or not. I don't remember. So anyway, real quick in terms of specifications, got to look off to the side where I've got my notes here for the summary. So if it looks like I'm looking way beside my webcam, it's because I am to read my notes. So 40.5 millimeters in diameter, estimated. This was AI's estimate because I don't think it listed it in the article. Lug to lug would be around 48 millimeters based off of their other watches. Lug width is 20 millimeters on this watch. 50 meters water resistance, and the thickness is 11.25 millimeters. Not too bad given the module. So this is the caliber MSJH01. So this is a Solita base movement, but it's got the jump hour module with it. 4 hertz, 47 hours of power reserve. They've done a few different things here. So there are actually 3 different ones. These 2 that you see on the screen are standard production models. They're lacquered. So I actually think these photos don't look very good. So I'd like to see some more photos because lacquering usually, I think, plays with light pretty well. I don't usually see white lacquering, and I greatly prefer the black, but I do have a bias, I feel, towards black lacquer just because I've seen it on such other high-end watches like Longenzona does a very nice black lacquer. Crador loves to lacquer watches, and I just think in dark colors lacquer looks really good, and that's what I just sort of traditionally associate with lacquer. But nonetheless, this little thing that looks like the glaive from Kroll, that will, like the blade, like the one I'm touching with a little mouse, if you can see it, it will rotate in 1 minute around. So this is basically the seconds hand. No, you can't tell what second it is because it's a glaive. I don't think that's what they call it, but we're going to call it the glaive. It's the glaive, and the glaive is just there to spin around, and I suppose provide some visual interest on what is otherwise a fairly austere watch, especially because they've kind of bel cantoed this. You've got this offset time for the one hand to tell you the minute, but it's all on. It's a little bit. It's not just the top half of the watch. It's not quite bel canto. It's actually taking up. I'll say, let's be generous and say that the kind of 30-second mark is about 2/3 of the way down the dial. So, but again, you do have a lot of white space that they're trying to fill. And I think that little glaive is to give you some visual interest there. Plus, another nice thing about having glaives on watches is sometimes when you don't have the seconds hand with mechanical watches, you might be like, is it running? So like my Parmigiani Tonda, it doesn't have a seconds hand. What I do is it has a display case back. So I will actually wind it looking at the display case back to know when it kicked on because I don't have a seconds hand to look at. I have a Mr. Jones Ricochet watch. It actually has a very, very, very small disc that will spin. It's hard for me to see though. A lot of times when I'm winding that one, I actually just hold it to my ear to hear it ticking. And that's how I know I actually got it started. So that does kind of, it's not a big deal, but I guess, having a visual cue that your mechanical watch is moving is kind of nice. I know a lot of people that don't like to have the lack of a seconds hand on a mechanical movement because part of the joy of a mechanical watch is to be able to watch it actually ticking. And I don't believe this has a display case back. I'm going to try and get you to the photo. So this is a little bit better shot of this lacquer. So you can actually see it does have some more life in it than those head-on like light box photos are showing you. Like this makes, I'm afraid this just makes the watch look dead to me. I do not like that shot. Now this is the limited edition. So I said there are three models. These are all the same specs, except here, obviously there's a guilloche patterning done. And also the MeisterSinger logo is actually all the way down into what would traditionally be our 6 o'clock chapter ring. Whereas you see on these other ones, they've lifted the text right beneath their glaive. So you still get the glaive. They wanted to occupy that space with the guilloche. I actually think this is a very nice looking guilloche pattern as well. So overall, this is easily the guilloche limited edition one is easily my favorite looking watch. I was wrong. It does have a display case back, signed crown, interesting case configuration. Not a very well decorated movement in my opinion, but again, it's not ugly. It's okay. It's machine finished like you would expect. So anyway, price. I have not mentioned that part yet, have I? So these standard production models are $7,599 US dollars. So $7,600. $7,600 for the white or the black. If you want the guilloche one, it's $8,700. And I mentioned that it's a limited edition. I don't remember how limited. So I was scrolling to see if I could find the count because I'm sure the article has it in there, but I did not pull it out. And I should say what the base movement. I told you it was a base Solita movement. It's an SW300. It's not a 200. It is an SW300 as the base movement. So anyway, the limited edition is 25 pieces. So that is quite limited. I will say. However, $8,700 and $7,600 are not prices I have associated MeisterSinger with. Like MeisterSinger being a few thousand, yes, but I don't typically think about plus 5,000, especially this high up. I mean, this is high up on price. Now, maybe I'm used to looking at gray market pricing or used pricing on MeisterSinger. And quite frankly, I've not looked at MeisterSinger seriously as a watch to purchase in a long, long time. I got past my maybe get a one-hand gimmick phase quite a while ago, and I never pulled the trigger on it. I did actually look a lot more at one of their jump hour watches because I thought that was much cleaner and cooler. And something like this is neat. But I mean, here's my problem. At $8,700, as cool as this guilloche is, and you see them, so I mean, it's, hand engine turn and all of that. Like, you're in the price point where you can get used Breguet with traditional engine turning at $8,700. Like some of the one, like the super thin one, I don't even remember the classic reference. I didn't get it, but I looked at it. I got one with a central seconds hand, but there was one that's even thinner that's just hour and minute, and it used was even cheaper. I mean, mine was still 5-figure, but barely. But they were under 10. They were under 10 back when I looked. Again, this was like 2 years ago, but I don't know. I think they may sell them because it is only 25 units, and that is not very many. But I think MeisterSinger's flying too close to the sun here, especially with the mass-produced models at $7,600. I just don't see it. I think the only argument for it is lacquer, and I don't think lacquer costs thousands of dollars. I think maybe we're starting to feel like it does because we're so used to seeing lacquer on Longas and Cradors and stuff, but it's really not that expensive of a process. I mean, it depends on how you do it to a degree, but it's like enamel. Like enamel watches all of a sudden got to be expensive. Enamel used to be a super cheap option for watches. Like those Dirty Time Company Spiro Agnew watches, until they were so popular they had to produce paper dials as well. The enamel dial ones were like a $15 watch. Yes, that was 1969, but I mean, what's the, you won't see it because I'm using another tab, but let me see. Inflation calculator. Yeah, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We trust them. What would we say if we were to go all the way? It wasn't January, but let's pretend it. January of 1969. I'm scrolling to the year because I got to scroll way back. This is way back in the past. I'm going to say it was a $15 watch. What would that be in January 2026 dollars? $137.04. $138. Okay, so like enamel as a process is not anything of note in terms of pricing. So that's sort of my point there. So okay, let me go ahead and see. My tabs now are being really uncooperative with my YouTube thing. So let me I closed my one thing and it wouldn't let me back in the studio, but now it has. I think I'm still going. So yeah, it says it's still streaming. So let me go and see what you guys think before we actually jump to the Tutima like I was going to. But all right. So, Thomas with the Escapement Show. Good morning, Dennis and all. Well, good morning to you. Hope things are going well. Thomas likes these MeisterSinger Jump Hour watches. The rotating seconds disc is a nice aesthetic addition. We call that the glaive because we like Krull, because that was the best fantasy 80s movie ever, despite what every review has ever said. It's all about Krull. So, all right, we got that. We've got cool electables. Just like Christopher Ward, I don't understand this design where the hand is going to cover the jump hour. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think they probably don't have any shots showing that happen. As big as the date, as big as the hour is, it's probably relatively readable, especially when you consider that you can hold the watch off to the side to get a view of it. So I think in that regard, it's probably not really a problem, but I could see where it would be off-putting. I think with the Christopher Ward, personally, I feel that it's worse. And the reason is I think the Cyclops calls too much attention. Like all of a sudden your minute hand becomes bulbous when it's within that range. And again, we could call that out for anything like the Rolex Cyclops and the minute hand and all the rest of it, which, you know what? Fair enough. I mean, but I know plenty of people that hate the Cyclops on the Rolex, which is why they would always like consider sea dwellers and not submariners and stuff. So it's all just whatever we like in terms of style. But yeah, not my favorite feature to it. But again, it is only going to be in the way. I mean, if we go back to the image here, it's only going to be in the way for approximately 3 minutes on each side of the top of the hour. So it's not even a 10-minute window. So it is a very small portion of the time, but nonetheless, it is a portion of the time. Let me see. Donter says, some watches you need to see the video of it running to capture the essence of it. For example, skeletons. And I imagine this MeisterSinger is an example of this. Perhaps I would think it would be neat to see the glaive moving, but and maybe they have a video on their website. However, since I know that spins around once every minute, it's not going to spin fast. Like, it's not going to be a proper glaive. You can't cut the beast with a slow moving glaive. You have to have a proper glaive. Everyone who's seen Krull knows this. Maybe MeisterSinger didn't watch it. I don't know. Underachieving says $7,600 for one hand. I can pay less for 3 hands. It is that sort of math that will always keep you on the straight and narrow when it comes to buying watches. So never lose your way. But a very good point. Lam says that 60s lacquer enamel dial is probably made of licorice. Lacquer is a time-consuming process. I have a Seiko one, and it looks great. The SPB405J. Very dark and deep black. Well, and it could be. It could be a genuine licorice flavor. I will say that 60s one actually is a white. Well, no, not lacquer. It was it was an enamel without a lacquer. Let me to add to that. I'm actually doing a quick search because I was curious about you. So you named a Presage, right? So let's look at it real quick. I don't know if you have the black one or not, but you said the 405. So it's $1,600. Like, again, okay, I did a really cheap watch and watches were different back then, and it's $138 or whatever, but $1,600 versus $7,600. Like, there's a big range here, and a lot of people are going to find this Seiko far more attractive. So I think for me, that's sort of the struggle. I feel like they're trying to, I don't know what they're saying. Let me put it that way. I don't know what they're saying. Are they saying that this watch is $7,600 because of the jump hour? Or are they saying because it's got lacquer? Because I don't believe it in either instance. I don't think it's $7,600 for either of those reasons. Are they saying it's $7,600 because the movement is a base SW300? I don't believe that either. Christopher Ward has plenty of SW300 base model movements that are not $7,600. So the sum of the pieces, I guess, are $7,600, except I don't believe it. I don't accept that this is $7,600 worth of stuff. It's not an in-house movement. They've had a jump hour before. I don't think this is new tech, period. I don't think the lacquer costs that much. And I don't accept that the movement technology, much less the finishing, justifies the price. So as interesting as I think this is, which is why I'm talking about it, the price is a big no for me. Like, even 50% off, I don't think I would buy this watch. I think you could argue it was fair at 50%, but even for me, I don't think I could get there. I just don't like the design enough, unfortunately, to pull the trigger on that point. Whereas this $1,600, again, I wish these look like renders. I prefer photos to really show off lacquer. But again, you guys get the idea of the design cue. Outside of maybe some people might not like the gold colored secondhand. This is a very nice classic looking watch that's going to resonate with a lot of people, in my opinion. But we all have our own. Fort says, beautiful watch, but you are right. It needs an indicator to tell it's running, which is why we have the glaive. The glaive. You know what doesn't need a glaive? Tutima. Tutima doesn't need the glaive. German also. It's like MeisterSinger. I don't want to say we went with a German theme, but Ressence is the last brand, so we did not. I don't know anything about Tutima. I know I've heard of it. This is where you feel like I've done this channel for years now, and sometimes I feel still quite stupid about things. I know I've heard Tutima at some stage, but I don't know anything about them. I didn't know that they're based in Glasuta. I guess they moved to Glasuta. I guess they weren't always there. But nonetheless, here we go. The Tutima Patria Titanium in light blue. So, all right. This article, again, link in the video description, is with monochrome. So here's a photo from monochrome. Specifications real quick. Excuse me. 41 millimeter in diameter watch. Lug to lug is, I don't think it was published again either. AI estimated 49 millimeters lug to lug on it. Lug width is, I think, 20. I might have to go down and check that. Water resistance is 50 meters. Thickness, 11.2 meters. That's going to be a point of criticism. Let me see here. Do we have all that sizing? No, I can't even promise you that it's 20 millimeter lug to lug. I'm guessing it based off of the 41, or AI guessed it. I have it try and fill in the blanks when I have it scrape a summary of the stats out of these, so I don't have to type them all and make my typos. But anyway, continuing on. Driven hand wound movement. This is their caliber 617. That's 3 hertz, 65 hours of power reserve. They do actually have a nice shot of it. Again, very Glasuta style, Glasuta striping, 3/4 plate format like you would expect. I actually think this is a very nice looking movement, with full acknowledgement that I have a strong bias in favor of German design. And so I do like, but this very brass looking style that they've gone with here, I think is very interesting and gives it a lot of warmth. Front of the dial, I like a bit as well. Not my favorite configuration, but you've got this diamond guilloche style pattern, which I think complements the light blue very well. Kind of fun handset. I don't know how we would describe these hands exactly. I think of them almost as they're not quite javelin hands, but almost a deviation, I guess, of it. Aggressive indices. I do like that. They're faceted. So I feel with that, you get a lot of light play. Don't think this watch has any lume. So this case is actually titanium, grade 5 titanium. So, you've got this. And also going back to the movement, again, you might not, if you didn't notice it the first time because of how warm these colors are, but you've got black polished screws. Very a Longanzona style here. The jewels they're not set in the plate. They are held by gold chatons. So, and that's something that I have always associated with Longanzona, but obviously other brands can do it, and they screw those in. So it's a fancier, old-fashioned process to do it. They have a Breguet overcoil for sprung balance, if you care about that sort of stuff. So anyway, I do think they also, yes, they did lume it, and it looks like they did use Super Luminova for the hands, and I'm not sure if they used any on the indices. I wish we had a night shot, but they might actually say in the narrative here. I only see for sure that there's lumen. I'm not going to say there's any I don't see it on the indices. But on the hand. So, which is something that some of these more dressy watches will often do. Now, price on this Tutima is $8,600 approximately US, because it's 8,600 euro. So not too bad for given when you see with the movement. I feel like this looks pretty high end. Manual wind movement. As near as I know, in-house to them. Nice grade 5 titanium job, an elegant dial, serious workmanship, I think, on the movement itself. So I'll say that the 8,600 euro feels like it's a fair price for what you get out of this. However, this watch is too big for a dress watch, in my opinion. Okay, 41 millimeters. Can we have dress watches? We can do whatever we want. You guys can buy whatever you want. 41 millimeters. Okay, it's pushing it for what is very clearly a dress watch aesthetic, but fine. But at 11.2 millimeters thick, I am all right. It's not going to be a chonker. It is titanium. It's going to be light. I don't mean to suggest it's going to be an overly heavy watch, but 11.2 millimeters for a three-hander in a dress watch configuration with a hand wind only movement is a little thick. It's a little on the thick side. I would never describe this as a thick watch. However, I feel that a serious dress watch honestly shouldn't be over 11. I would say anything under 10 I would consider relatively thin, and I think dress watches should strive for that. And I understand dress watches need to be thicker when you add complications. You add chronographs, you add date complications and such. You're going to have thickness. This is only time. It is only time. And they went hand wind, so they don't have to accommodate a rotor. So that's really the only pushback I've got. I think it looks interesting. And the hands kind of, in a way, remind me a little bit of Laurent Ferrier, but I actually like this look better. I haven't found a Laurent I can really get behind. But I like this. I like this blue color. I think this grade 5 titanium looks really clean on this. I like the strap choice they went with on it. And I don't really buy watches for the movement, but I think this is a pretty interesting movement from the whole configuration on the click to using the gold chatons and all of that, and just sort of this really warm brass color for all the plating. It looks really nice. So I was just surprised. I didn't know. I think Tutima may be known more for their sports watches, but apparently their Patria line's not new. This is the new model within it, but I wasn't familiar with it. 50 meters water resistance, perfectly reasonable, overly reasonable for a dress watch like this. So really, I'd say they got almost everything right about this. My real only criticism really is the thickness. I even forgive the 41 millimeter because they're going to be larger wrist people that will love that as a dress watch. I know people that don't want a dress watch under 40 millimeters. So a little too big for me to probably get myself. Definitely too thick though. That's my only gripe. With a hand wind, I'm still shaking my head that it's this thick, but is what it is. So let's see here. We've got MCart. Welcome to the live stream. Says late to the party. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, MCart. Hope things are going well for you. I like the new Perlay watch with the malachite natural stone dial. I was gonna say I was this close. It's probably more like this. I was this close to adding it for discussion today. However, I didn't feel like talking about another stone dial watch. Should I have? Maybe, but we spent time with MeisterSinger instead, so I did not. Koji, welcome to the live stream, and thank you for being a 99 Cent Club member. I do appreciate it. Attractive dial and the hands on the Tutima. I think that it all really complements. So I like this shot to let you see that like when you have these tapering indices, I call these aggressive indices. Anything that looks kind of sharp or like teeth, I kind of think of as aggressive indices. And I actually really like that. One, the faceting on them lets it play with the light well. But two, I think it just creates visual interest and makes it a little more than just a really staid, boring dial. Granted, with this guilloche, I already think this looks a little sporty. And the light blue, quite frankly, complements that as well. Koji also really likes the large movement. So I will go back so you all can once again take a look at that. I didn't notice the gold chatons at first, so I thought that was a really cool feature. Donter says, I was today years old when I learned that the jewels have a functional purpose in a movement. Yes, to decrease friction. However, I did not know until only a few years ago that originally they couldn't see. I should have known it because watches are old. That they couldn't seat jewels directly into the plates. Like the tolerances weren't there. So you screwed them in and had little holders that you would do. And that's what this format is with the chatons. So I don't know if Glasuta uses chatons, Glasuta Original. I've never owned any that did. Longa loves to use chatons, so they use them quite a bit. And it's not just a German thing, like others can do it too. But obviously, it's fallen out of favor as technology has made it quite easy to seat jewels into the plates directly. So, Underachieving says, nice looking, but a little big, and Tutima isn't a brand to buy at retail. I don't really know anything about the purchasing on Tutima, so this was all very new to me. I swear I've heard the name. I don't think I've ever even been to their website. Collectible says, looks beautiful, but I strongly dislike the proportions. Too big, as I noted for me. The thickness is a no, like absolutely not for a three-hander. Like again, if it was a dive watch or something where it needed the thickness, 50 meters of raw resistance, guys, come on. There's no reason for it to be over 11 and a half. Well, over 11, I should say. It's 11.2. I was going to say 11 and a half. It's not. It's not. It's just a little much. It's going to be light as a feather, though, with it being titanium. So, one of those things. Speaking of light as a feather, what about Ressence? Sorry, I didn't have a good transition. So we just work with what we've got. So this, again, Hodinkee for this article, link in the video description. This is another limited edition model. This is the Type 9. It looks like it says Ike. I think it's supposed to be Ike. So I'm going to say Ike. But what a cool looking watch. So, all right. Let me go ahead and throw a good shot of the dial here so you can kind of appreciate this very futuristic looking styling. At least I think it looks futuristic. But all right, the watch itself is 39. It looks bigger because the photo is so big compared to the Tutima, but this is 39 millimeters in diameter. Estimated lug to lug distance of 47 millimeters, but I don't have a confirmation of that. Lug width on the watch is 20 millimeters. Thickness is 11. So this is actually 2.2 millimeters thinner than the Tutima we just talked about. Only 10 meters of water resistance. So this is supposed to be splash proof is how it's been described. And this uses the ROX 9 automatic module movement. I think that's how Ressence commonly does is these various modules. This is an ETA 2892 base movement. So 4 hertz, 36 hours of power reserve. Now, price of this watch, 32,000 Swiss francs, which is roughly $35,000 US. So I said it's limited. We talked about this MeisterSinger earlier, the one with the guilloche that's limited to 25. This is limited to 8. So what they've done is they've got this, their orbital display system, which is what Ressence is known for. And then they worked with a Japanese artist, Teramasa Ikeda. So that's why I think it's supposed to be the Type 9 Ike. So Ikeda did this. This is a grade 5 case. Those are the dials, but the case is grade 5 titanium, but DLC coated. I actually really like DLC coating. I have a Moser that's DLC coated. Other than where I scratched it, I like the DLC. All blacked out watches are a bit much for me, but again, you've got this really, really colorful dial. Don't ask me how to tell the time. I've never learned how to tell the time on a Ressence, and I couldn't tell you how to tell it on this. But what's done here, we talked about lacquer earlier, again, with the MeisterSingers, specifically with the standard production MeisterSingers, and even when we talked a little bit about like the SPB 405 Presage from Seiko in terms of lacquering the dial. So this, very interesting, I think. And I can understand that. Is the pricing right or not? I have no idea, but I can understand kind of where they're coming from on it. So Teramasa Ikeda, what was done here is you've got this DLC case, grade 5 titanium. That part's all the regular, just like Ressence doing stuff. He uses an Urushi lacquer process for the dark areas. So that's lacquered. And then what's done is these colorful parts are actually, I'm probably going to missay the word, Raiden style mother of pearl inlay. So these are actually mother of pearl parts that have been inlaid onto this otherwise lacquered dial to achieve this colorful effect. And I think there's a very interesting portion in the article that was going and sort of explaining like how to do this sort of handcrafted dial work. And so there you have these little bits of mother of pearl fragments, and you'll see this part here. Because there's this curve to the Type 9 dial, you see the curve here. But because of that, they have to have the fragments of shell, mother of pearl, soaked. So they're soaked and they're bent. And they have to bend them so that the slope follows the slope of the dial. That's painstaking. So I like this watch for a lot of reasons. I'll never buy it. But so $35,000 watch. I normally, mother of pearl dials will catch my eye, but I've never bought one because ultimately, usually in a lot of lighting, I find them looking more more feminine than I want in a type of watch. There's certain aspects of that I like rose gold and such, but not mother of pearl is always just a little too shiny to me. I don't know how else to describe it. I just don't, I like, it catches my eye, but I don't ever really imagine it looking good on my wrist. This whole approach, making it feel like it's some sort of weird sci-fi thing, like we're going straight up remake Battlestar Galactica and the Cylons are inventing watches now. Like this, I just think it looks really, really interesting. From a distance, I don't think it looks expensive either. I think this looks like some glow-in-the-dark poster that you would find in an 80s arcade. However, understanding how it was created, I find it much more impressive. And then like these sort of the incongruency, the flaws, so to speak, make sense when you understand that these are just little bits of mother of pearl. They're having to be bent in certain ways and shaped and manipulated in order to achieve it. So knowing that, I can appreciate just how hard it is to make a dial like this. And I understand why he only did 8 of them. But so I think this looks really cool. It does look like a toy. Understanding what's behind it, I respect it quite a bit, but it would never be for me. Ressence is one of those brands I've looked at a few times. I'm not sure I'll ever find one that will. I like looking at them. Let's put it that way, but I don't ever really imagine owning them. But I thought this was pretty cool. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit. If for no other reason than to point out the process that the artist had to use to achieve what this happens to be. And still, I have no idea how to tell the time on any of it. So, all right. Let's see. Thomas with Escapement Show says, I love Ressence watches, but this just makes me dizzy when I look at it. I could see the dizziness. Again, I like my arcade statement, where I'm talking like not just the neon in the arcade. I'm talking like the glow in the dark carpet style arcade, like the full on like experience. Like you can smell the coconut oil popcorn from the movie theater next door style. Like that's the smell. I bet this watch smells like popcorn. That's what I'm saying. Donter says, OMG, speaking of videos, check out the video on the Ressence website. Everything spins. We can hop over there because we do have some time. And Patrick with Pocket Watch Time says, I love Ressence, but that looks like a $100 Amazon special. What about the part where I explained how he had to bend the mother of pearl, Patrick? Does it look like a $200 special after knowing that? That's the goal. Did we get you to $200? That's all Ressence has ever wanted from anyone. So, all right. I have loaded up the Ressence website. Here's the watch. Where's my? That's not the right video. That's not. Have I been tricked? No. I bet if I discover it, I'll get to see it. That's just more of the dial. Oh, okay. There we go. The truth was there. If I move my mouse, you don't have to see the little pause symbol. Look at that. Look at it spinning. I bet it's now to $300, Patrick, with the spin. No, pop up stuff. I hate all websites now. They always pop stuff up. And Nerd Achieving says, true luxury, buying an expensive watch you can't even tell the time with. I'm sure the manual will tell you how to tell the time on this. I mean, I think this purpley rainbow thing is telling you one thing. I don't know. I never liked the hand symbol on this. I always feel like this is telling you don't stick your fingers in the machine or you'll lose them, but I don't know. And then I guess maybe this line tells you something related to the bezel, but guys, I don't know. All right. Patrick has agreed to go up to 200, not 250. 250 is too far, but he has agreed. The movement has gotten him to 200, along with the knowledge of how hard it was to make. Koji says, watching that video brings me back to my misspent youth, wasting quarters on playing Tempest in an arcade. I was not much of a Tempest person. I would like to play Sinistar, but I got scared of Sinistar, and so I'd always look away the moment he would jump out because he'd jump scare me, and then I'd burn the rest of my quarters on Dragon's Lair, which I could never get anywhere because I didn't understand how I was supposed to predict anything, not understanding that all those games back then were designed really just to devour quarters because you had to memorize patterns. There wasn't really a way to play them by eyesight alone and get all the way through. Koji goes, run, beware, I live. Yes. I have thought about picking up a Sinistar, but I've got too many pinball machines. I can't be fitting in a Sinistar. I don't think they're very expensive either. Nobody likes Sinistar. It was too scary. But the traumatic memories sometimes make me think I should grab one. And Daunters merely laughs. So, All right. Well, that's all I had for you. So we talked Swatch's response to Morgan Stanley, hearing about this lawsuit from Morgan against Swatch. I'll have to read up about that. We might get drama out of Morgan Stanley for years. This could be the topic that just never dies. And then of course we talked about the new jump hour from MeisterSinger, the new version of the Tutima Patria, if I'm saying it right, and then of course the Ressence Type 9 E-case. So that's all I've got for you. I've got stuff to do. You guys have got stuff to do. You don't want to just sit here watching YouTube. You have lives to lead. So go lead those lives. I will plan to be back next weekend with another. I will be back next weekend. I've got a trip coming up in March that will stop me on one of these weekends. I'll let you guys know ahead of it, but it won't be this next one. But other than that, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys all on the next video. So take care.